It was mentioned that, obviously we need money, but we don't have a lot of money. But what we're talking here is not, is that part of a reindustrialization process needs obviously funds, but the other part is not about money. It's about other things. What do we need money for? We need money, obviously, for example, for Portugal, it's crucial to invest in trans-European energy and transportation networks. Portugal and Spain, since the 19th century, in terms of energy, in terms of transportation, live on an island. We have different size tracks for our trains, and in terms of energy, gas and electricity, we are not fully connected with France. Well, if we want to have full competition, if we want to reduce prices for our consumers and our enterprises, if we need to promote a reduction of the costs for our companies, we need to have these projects to be taken in the next few years. We're not talking in 20, 30 years. We need them in the next few years. So we need to finish what has been discussed and what has been discussed in Europe about the energy and transportation networks. We need to finish and complete them. It has to be a priority. On the other hand, we also need funds, for example, to invest in vocational training in the dual system. We are, for example, in Portugal this year, we know that our efforts for industrialization require more qualification of our workers. And so we are increasing by 50% the number of our young people studying in the dual system, in the apprentice system. We want to resurrect and bet a lot in vocational training, especially in education. There is also professional education and technical education. Very important for us in order for us to have qualified workers for our industry. So for those things we need funds. We need structural funds. Obviously, these are things that we need at the European level to have a strong industry. But then we have many other things that are blocking the competitiveness of our industry and the growth of our industry, that we don't need money. And this is what the Vice President was mentioning as well. If we want to have a smarter competition policy, a competition policy that was designed mostly in the 1950s, in a world that was, and that is, very different from today, then we need to think about what can we do to reinforce the competitiveness of our industry. Very often, and this happens in Portugal, in Brussels, anywhere, our bureaucrats think about models, think about rules that are beautiful on theory, but they are a disaster for our companies in practice. We need politicians. We need a vision like people like Commissioner Tajani to overtake the visions or the workings of these bureaucrats. Because Europe needs growth, doesn't need more bureaucracy. Europe needs growth, doesn't need more regulation. We need smarter regulation, with less regulation. We don't need a lot more regulation. And on top of that, we need to have an environmental policy that is not against industry. Environmental policy has to work with industry, not against industry. We cannot be, or we cannot think that Europe is going to lead the way around the world and we're going to kill our industry along the way as well too. In terms of environmental policy, it's very important that Europe takes the lead, but we cannot kill our industry along the way. It's not smart. If we don't have industry, we don't have jobs. If we don't have jobs, we don't have Europe. Simple as that. And besides, as the Vice President was mentioning, if these companies go to other, outsource their companies, or they outsource their work to other places in the world with less stringent environmental standards, then obviously we are not being smart, because emissions are going to grow. They're not going to decrease. And we need also a trade policy that is, respects one thing that everybody, I think, this table is saying, reciprocity. We need to have everybody has to have the same level playing field. The level playing field is not balanced right now. Europe is giving a lot more than it's receiving, and this cannot happen. And so this is very important. In terms of state aid and in terms of fiscal issues, other unions, especially political unions like the United States and Canada, the states and the provinces compete with each other in terms of tax issues. Why should we have to promote a harmonization of fiscal or a harmonization of taxes around Europe? Is this for the common good of Europe, or is it better for our states to offer different conditions? My opinion is that clearly shows that the United States and Canada are working very well, and we have competition between states. Why should we have to be different? I don't think that it should be. In terms of state aid, there is a lot of restrictions. We cannot, as a whole, we cannot support our industries very often because of the restrictions we have in terms of state aid. Well, if we want to have a stronger industrial Europe, we need to have a smarter state aid projects. We need, now that we are revising our state aid, we need to implement a strategy in which takes into account two things. First of all, stronger industrial Europe. Secondly, countries around Europe are not facing the same level playing field either. In our monetary union, our PMEs in Portugal, or SMEs in Portugal, or in Spain, or in Italy, or in Ireland, or in Greece, or in Slovenia, or in other countries that now are going through some difficulties, do not face the same level playing field that other SMEs around Europe. Why? Because they, first of all, they cannot get credit, or it's very difficult for them to get credit. And secondly, they are facing interest rates that are much higher than anywhere else, for example, in Germany. Is this fair as a monetary union? I don't think so. So why should we be, should not do the same in terms of, state aid and relaxing some sort of impositions and rules that we have, over-regulation that we have around Europe? I think it's just, we need to have smarter policy, and this is what the Vice President is advocating, and we should all be in favor of supporting him in the Commission and in Europe in order for us to reindustrialize Europe.